Hello, darlings. Here we are for another stunning soul soiree. And what we are delving into today is where your ultimate spiritual strength, power, and integrity reside. So, we all know that we are immersed in a world that is showing us exactly who we are being. So the only thing that there ever is for us to focalize is who we are being. See, because life isn't so concerned about what we think that we want or what we want. Life will always give us precisely who we are being. And so to be the embodiment of all enveloping, all encompassing, perfect, heavenly, holy, luscious, exquisite divine love is the most palpable space to operate from. So somebody asked a question, and the question was, how do I essentially stay in an elevated, expansionary, omniversal, rich, juicy, fully luminous, fully super conscious space of being an embodiment when the people and the circumstances around me are bringing me down. And I'm intimate with precisely what this feels like because when I'm in my own space, we all know how this goes. Super elevated, soaring, like pristine, immaculate, divine diamond frequencies. And I can feel even the tiniest nuance of when an energetic comes in and is operating in a more dense and contracted space. So the opportunity for us, and this is a sign of our own mastery. And so to include with this in that question was I realize that what is manifesting is the result of my embodiment. But as we integrate the practices, essentially, how do we be with these things when they show up? And so these things, again, are showing up as a mirror of what is happening within us. And so as we're refining and polishing and coming into deeper integrity, attunement, alignment, coherency with our supreme source, nature, and essence, then what we can do is focalize being the most bright, beamy, grounded, solid, rich, embodied expression of pure divine love that we can possibly be. And so this is all coming from the power and the majesty of the heart center. So this is the high powered heart, right? It's not timid, it's not weak, it's incredibly powerful and rich in its capacity to be an all enveloping force and source of the most supreme love. And so then what we do is we place our emphasis on ourselves, not on what we want, not on how we wish other people to be showing up, not on even it's beyond giving and receiving love. This is we're coming fully into the beingness. So our primary focus then is on us and who we are being in this timeless eternal now. Because again, the power of this is who we are choosing to be in this moment is shaping our past and our future simultaneously. There's no more valuable and important moment than this moment right here and who we are choosing to be in this moment. And so returning to love, returning to divinity, returning to the absolute boundless, radiant, super conscious self-awareness of our own true being again and again and again, and having the tools and the frequency technologies and the leadership and the guidance and the family and the community and the support that will effectively, lovingly, graciously, continuously guide us back home to truth. So immersing and saturating in these frequencies and attuning to ourselves in each moment and asking ourselves, again, not what do I want, not how do I want the mirror to change, but who am I being in this moment is actually the primary cause, the sole operant cause of what is showing up in the mirror. So we bring the emphasis back here. And this is a huge part of maturation too, because we often, when we're in our holy and sweet spiritual adolescence, there's a wishing to receive the love, a wishing to have an experience something that life is giving to us to support us with feeling whole and complete and powerful and lit up and alive in life. And so there's a fundamental shift that takes place as we grow and expand and deepen and widen our embodiment of divinity. The focus shifts from not what do I want, and not what is the degree of love that I feel that I'm receiving from others, but am I being the most integrous, pure, divinely embodied exemplar of love that I can be? So then the fulfillment comes from knowing our power, our capacity, and our deep-seated integrity to be all enveloping, so that whatever comes to us, and this is where pure power is truly derived and engenders our being. So when we're in a space of, kind of just like wanting love from the world or hoping to receive love from the world, it's not really ever going to give it to us in the exact way that we wish for it to, because we're coming from the wrong space. And because we're coming from a space of incompletion in that. And so we find our wholeness in, I fully and completely trust myself to whatever comes and whatever shows up. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to drink it in. I'm going to merge with it. I'm going to love it fully as my own self. I'm going to integrate it into my being. And so when there's sensations of incompletion, lack, not enoughness, there tends to be a wanting to receive something from the world that we're ultimately not giving ourselves in being. And that's the actual only space that we can derive that from and cultivate it within our own self. So then, and those sensations are what create instabilities, and we can call them insecurities within us, because there's kind of this, well, do I fully know and trust that love is the one that's going to show up in this moment? Do I fully know that? We don't fully know that until we are being that, because we trust ourselves to be that, and therefore that is what is going to show up for us. And so then it comes from like this kind of trepidatious energy in our interface with the world, like someone or something outside of me has the power to alter my state of being, to choose whether I am peaceful, blissful, empowered, joyous, etc. Somebody else or something else has the power to influence that. So in that, there's some trepidation, right, in our interaction with life. So I would invite us to come back to the space of, you are the creation of you. Everything showing up in your world is showing you with precising elegance, the feedback, the echo, the representation, the simulation of who you are being, which actually gives you all the power. And so it's also so incredibly important to be compassionate and graceful and generous with our own love for ourselves, towards ourselves and our own being, as we expand and enrich our embodiment and all of this, and really come into a space of full accountability and full responsibility for the fullness of our life experience. And so in this, what we're doing is, so then when we're only concerning ourselves with, am I being, am I loving in the way that God loves, that source loves, that love loves? Am I showing up as that being? Then the kind of the instabilities disappear, because we trust ourselves to actually merge with everything, to integrate it, to take it in. There's nothing that we fear, or we're not in resistance to the self anymore. So that's another word for, trepidation, instability. It's when we're in resistance to the self because we're afraid of our own self. We're afraid of our interface with our own unconsciousness and with our own shadowed aspects within ourselves. And so it's so sweet that we do this, but that's what's really happening. And so what we can do then is focus on self-illumination, self-nourishment, really resonating into and contemplating, how does God love? And we all know this because it's who we are. This is mastery. And then my capacity to then, or our capacity to move into the world and love all facets of the diamond, all aspects of the self in the way that love loves, all inclusive, all enveloping toward a love force. And in this, we have integrity because we're quite literally integrating everything. We're no longer in resistance to the self. We're not trepidatious. We're not fearful. We don't have this perception that someone or something outside of us can impact or influence us unless we are allowing it in some way. We know that we are the prime dominant operant power, and we trust ourselves to be inclusive sources and forces of pure love, to envelop all that is, to edify, to uplift, to encourage, to enhance, advance, celebrate, and prolifically prosper and flourish all life. And again, this is the nature of intelligence. Intelligence would not ever attempt, because it's not even possible in the realm of infinite possibilities. Intelligence would never even attempt to separate from itself, to resist itself, to fear itself, um, to devalue itself. It just simply wouldn't. That's not an act of pure intelligence. And so pure intelligence does recognize all that is the self. And so operates in divine integrity, which is, I am here ceaselessly to uplift, to elevate, to expand, to enrich, to prosper and give life and health to all aspects of the self. Prime This is prime mode of operandi: service to love, loving love, showing up for the supreme self. And so, integrity is often, again, associated with certain behaviors, certain ways of being, certain ways that we show up in the world. And while there is a space for this in the embodiment of our divine, our dignity, our full embodiment of the self, of the divine, cosmic, open open heart of cosmic Christ and consciousness, our actions, our behaviors, our ways of being and showing up and speaking of ourselves and speaking of others and speaking of all life, all of this comes as a natural byproduct of us being integral with our divine source essence. So we can tell when we or anyone else is operating in true, deep, rich, divine integrity based on some of these things, because all of who we are and how we show up is going to be in accord with the highest order, the supreme law of love and life itself, and oneness, inclusiveness, pure intelligence. And so really this is, again, it's about coming back home to ourselves. Who am I being? And am I in integrity with being the source, with being pure divine love, with being self-mastery with a capital S? And from this core within my own being, my devotion to this, everything else takes care of itself, because everything stems from this space. Our thoughts, our awareness, our perceptions, our feelings, our behaviors in the world organically begin to arise and stem from this space within us. So it synergizes everything else. So again, coming back home to this space of self-knowledge, self-awareness, embodiment of being that love. How does love steward its body, its legacy, its relationships, the earth, its holy home temple, all of these aspects? How does love love? And are we being that? And when we entrust ourselves fully to show up and be that, there's nothing else for us to concern ourselves with or focus on, even if we're polishing the mirror, right? So some things might continue to present themselves to us because we're still polishing that unconsciousness. Beautiful, okay. You can just be with it, be present to it. Okay, this is an aspect of me that's showing up from an old frequency that I was embodying, or old way of being. And my sole intent in this moment is to just love it exactly as it is and as it's showing up. Keep doing that, keep being that source of love. It'll dissolve from the mirror and it will transform in your reality. So this is so powerful. So integrity ultimately is our embodiment of our divinity, self-mastery. And that integrity creates a unified field of pervasive harmony that synchronizes and aligns everything else in our lives. This is our greatest spiritual power. This is our greatest spiritual strength and fulfillment and satiation. Because again, it's not so much about what do I want or the love that I'm receiving from the world. My fulfillment is not derived from that. It is derived by being filled with the love of self that I am being, and having so much self-reverence and self-respect and self-regard that I choose that. I choose to be the fullness of my mastery. And that is the greatest fulfillment. It is the greatest fulfillment to be able to love myself and to honor you and the divinity in you, in your being, to honor the divinity present in all life, in all moments. This is the greatest power. This is the greatest fulfillment and satiation, and is supremely liberating to us. Such deep core integrity we establish through this, and really power and fearlessness, in which all things are made possible to us in our capacity to love freely and limitlessly. And guess what? The total unified field of our infinite beingness, of the totality itself, all of our energy then is backing us up, is online, on board, and with us. It is propelling us in an incredibly powerful way because it recognizes us as a devout steward to thy will, to divine will. And all aspects of the self then come to back us up fully. So we are supported in ways that just exceed our wildest conceptions and visions in this life. We then have the support of our full self, all life, all energy, all consciousness, all creation, all existence supporting us when our intent is to be that love and to flourish and prosper all life. That's it. It's such a unified space of being and operating from that we can always return to within ourselves and just check in. Am I being the greatest source of love that I know to be in this moment? Am I loving with the purity and the grace and the power and the majesty of pure source energy? And if I'm growing, if I'm expanding, and there's a part of me that might, be having a challenge in this moment, that's okay. What is the resolution? I'm gonna love myself. So it's this profundity of the unifying force that love is. I'm going to give myself compassion in this moment. I'm going to offer and extend myself grace. And I'm going to trust that life is doing that for me too in this moment. And so in the evolution and the expansion, the deepening into love, even in the moments when we perceive that we're not showing up in our own mastery, we have an opportunity to gift ourselves more love, which enriches and deepens and strengthens the integrity. And when we are being the fullness of the love that we seek, that is when we begin to interface and engage with the love that we seek in the world, because we're being our divine self, unification with the self and the all. And so what presents to us, what shows up? The pure reflection of our divinity, of the love that we are. So incredibly powerful, and all of the power resides within the sanctuary of our high-powered, everlasting, immortal divine heart. I love you all so incredibly much, and we shall soiree again soon.